It's the Chris Salcedo Show. Glad you've made it, everybody. Your daily excursion into critical thinking. This is our job, not your typical morning show. Our job is to make sure this is the most informed audience in media. And I'm so excited to welcome in our next guest because information is what he does. I think, folks, I don't want to shoot too much sunshine here, but I think this man is probably the most prolific informational writer, investigative writer of our age. And I'm not being rhetorical. I just think that the work he does is so good. Peter Schweizer, number one New York Times bestselling investigative journalist and president of the Government Accountability Institute, to discuss this book that is incredibly explosive, and it's in line with a series of other books that have exposed those nations that are really not operating in our best interest. The Invisible Coup: How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon, debuting number one on the New York Times bestselling list, and why not? Peter Schweizer, welcome back.
Chris, great to be with you, my friend. How you been?
It has been far too long since you and I have spoken. I've been fine, and it's, again, an honor to have you here. Let's talk about Mexico, because this nation, and many people in this audience would agree with you, has been dubious at best and an enemy, I would say, at worst. What did you find?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when we look at immigration, we kind of look at it through the lens of, immigration 50, 100 years ago, but it's very different. What's going on today, it's weaponized immigration, and Mexico has a totally different view on what the purpose of immigration is. Let me just read, if I could, a quote or two for you. And the reason I want to read these quotes is that it sounds so fantastical when you say it. But the first one is from a Mexican senator, Morena Party, the ruling party. He sits on the National Defense Committee, the most powerful committee. And he wrote just a couple of years ago, quote, "Mexicans are in our territory. California, Nevada, Texas, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Wyoming. We're going to take back the territory that was stolen from us." I could literally read dozens of quotes like that. The point is, they view mass migration as a means to extend their governmental sovereignty into the United States. And they've set up a large apparatus that includes 53 consulates around the United States. But Chris, they also have this crazy thing that they're doing. And I briefed people at the White House and Capitol Hill on this. They were not aware of it. Right now, Mexico has more than a dozen officials that live inside the United States, but serve in the Mexican parliament, in the Mexican Senate, and in their Chamber of Deputies. And their job is to represent Mexicans living in the United States before the Mexican government, a massive intrusion into our sovereignty. At the same time, these officials are organizing some of the anti-ICE protests, and they're meddling in our politics, trying to elect Democrats and defeat Republicans. So they have intruded into our sovereignty, and we need to do something about it.
As America's liberty-loving Latino, I would remind the senator from Mexico, the land was not stolen. You got your ass kicked in a war. You lost because you were on the wrong side of history. And back then, people who were Mexican citizens were clamoring, eager to escape your backward country back then to become Americans, as they are today. A U.S. Visa program, allegedly designed by Communist China's intelligence agencies to funnel foreign money into American politics. What did you discover about this?
Yeah, Chris, this is the EB-5 visa program, where if you invest $1 million in the United States and you create a certain number of jobs, you get permanent resident status in the United States. Turns out that this program was launched in the 1990s. It was designed by a lady named Maria Tsai. Turns out she was a Chinese spy. And this visa program still exists today, Chris, and it's dominated by Chinese. Over 90% of the people that get visas this way are Chinese. And the problem is, you would think permanent resident status means they're moving here and they're going to live here. They're not. They're staying in China, but they have permanent resident status. And you're wondering, well, why would they want permanent resident status if they're not living here? The reason is, you can legally contribute to political campaigns from China if you have permanent resident status, and they're pouring tens of millions of dollars into our political campaigns. It'll come no surprise to you, of course, that money breaks 80 to 20 Democrat Republicans. So this is another example of how they have weaponized immigration, and they're using it to undermine us.
Yes, and you know what? This is a perfect dovetail into your previous book, Blood Money, which details how malign communist China's agenda is against taking down the United States. And I don't think it's an accident that you have bloodthirsty communists allied with, I'm sorry, Democrats. They have they're ideological cousins in their anti-Americanism and the way they see government's role in people's lives.
Yeah, it's like, it's like the Venn diagram, right? You have the two circles that kind of overlap, and you've got that commonality in the middle.
Yeah.
That commonality applies here because actors like China, like the Morena government in Mexico, they want to undermine the United States. They don't like American values, and Democrats share some of those views, and they also see the political advantage to this because it does break for them, and that's the problem. I would add that China, I think, also is frightening because they are manipulating birthright citizenship on an industrial scale. That's this idea that if you are just happen to be born in the United States, you are automatically granted citizenship. China has this thing called birth tourism, where there are thousands of companies in China. You fly your pregnant wife or girlfriend to the United States. She gives birth. Their child's given citizenship instantaneously. Days later, they fly back to China, and the child is going to be raised in the People's Republic of China under the CCP. But guess what? They're going to be able to vote. When they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote from China. And the numbers are absolutely staggering. Our federal government does not keep track of this for some reason. So they will say, we don't know how many people have done this. China has done studies, the government and research institutes, and they say that every year for the past 13 years, roughly 100,000 Chinese babies have been born in the United States or in our territories like Saipan and are growing up in China. That means we're looking at 1 million, quote unquote, US citizens that are being raised in China that are going to be able to vote in our elections. And that wave's going to start hitting around 2030. So this is a massive problem. The Supreme Court's going to be hearing about birthright citizenship in the upcoming session. My hope is they're going to say, wait a minute, time out. You can't just airdrop in your wife, get the citizenship, and raise your child somewhere else. That's not what the 14th Amendment means.
No, actually, it was never intended to reward illegal immigration or that kind of thing. It was designed to give the children of freed black slaves citizenship, to make sure that the great sin of slavery was righted. It was never intended to undermine the safety and sovereignty of the United States. Peter Schweizer, our guest right now, folks. The name of the book, The Invisible Coup: How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon. Is this what you were writing about? Instant citizenship? Is it this birthright tourism, or is that a different category?
Yeah, no, this is the instant citizenship, and there's another component to it too, Chris. We were talking about when the wife or the girlfriend flies here and gives birth. You have this additional problem of Chinese elite, CCP elites, that are now hiring surrogate mothers. These are U.S. citizens in the United States. They pay them 60 grand to carry their child. Same thing. The child is born here. It's granted citizenship. In this case, they have the added benefit of a biological American as their mother. They are raised in China, and they're going to be U.S. citizens. We don't know the numbers here, but a couple of data points. Number one, the Wall Street Journal had a front page story about 7-8 weeks ago about one guy, a Chinese billionaire close to the CCP, who, Chris, had more than 100 children born in the United States this way that are being raised in China. And we found, as I point out in the book, just in Southern California, there are 107 Chinese-owned surrogacy companies that advertise these services in China. So we don't even know what the numbers are there, but that's an additional huge problem here.
Good grief! And I would lay you dollars to donuts, folks. Our clueless Republican and Democrat uniparty leadership has no clue about any of this. Look, in particular, because we've seen NGOs, non-governmental organizations, making a lot of headlines because they've been taking American taxpayers' dollars and they've been using those taxpayer dollars. It came out in recent congressional testimony to fund these riots that are getting violent against the United States government enforcing immigration law, which of course is a violation, I think, of 2383 which is 18 U.S. Code 2383, which is insurrection and rebellion. But the NGOs have a far bigger scope, and you detail it in the book.
Yeah, that's right. The NGOs, when you ask them or when they report what their motives are for mass migration, it's ultimately not humanitarian. They believe it's going to have mass migration is going to have a quote transformative effect on America. In other words, they want to fundamentally change America. And to the riots, one of the things I point out in the book is you've got Mexican officials that are living in the United States. One of them, a guy named Alejandro Robles, he's a senior official in the Morena Party. He lives in Ontario, California. And he went around in 2025, in his words, quote, organizing the militancy as part of the permanent resistance against Trump. These are foreign officials. The other thing he does, Chris, by the way, is you do have people that come to the country. They want to embrace the American dream. They want to become Americans. He says that Mexicans that come to the United States and embrace American values are traitors to Mexico, and that President Sheinbaum agrees with him. So this is the kind of stuff that this government apparatus of Mexico is doing in our country. I think these people need to be kicked out of the country if they're foreign officials engaging this behavior. They're also organizing these ICE riots. I would note that in St. Paul, Minnesota, for example, there is a Mexican consulate, and it has worked closely with some of these anti-ICE groups.
Folks, I have said every single time you see a Mexican flag waving in the streets of America, that is a flag of oppression. And Peter Schweizer proving my words to be prophetic in his new book, Invisible Coup, How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon. Peter, last question I have for you is one I normally would ask any other author first, but because I wanted you to be able to set up the gravity of what you're outlining in this book, the takeaway from not only our elected officials and those who claim to be working in the best interest of our people, but our people themselves. What do you want them to take away from the book?
Well, I wanted to take away that my parents came as immigrants. So I think immigration can be a very, very good thing, but it has to be controlled. And what we're dealing with is weaponized immigration. It's not random, it's coordinated, it's organized, it has a purpose. I believe it's the largest national security threat we face right now. We need to get a handle on this before it's too late. I'm encouraged, Chris, before the book came out, I had a 55-minute meeting with the president in the Oval Office about the book. He had Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio there. I also met with senior officials in the Senate. I'll be testifying before the Senate. So we certainly have their attention. Now we just need to keep their focus on these issues and make sure they take action.
Right on, right on. Peter Schweizer, you get the book, Amazon, anywhere you get your books, or is there a preferred outlet that you like people to go to?
No, you can get it anywhere. And I appreciate you can go to theinvisiblecoup.com and leave your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
The name of the book, Invisible Coup, How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon. The author, the highly researched, I'm not trying to be rhetorical or because he's a guest right here. I'm just going to say probably one of the most well-researched authors of our age, folks, defining this age and trying to save these once United States. Sir, I appreciate the time as always.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your support as always. Thank you, brother.
Telephone number is 281-558-5738, 281-558-KACV. The bottom of the hour, we've got Dan Crenshaw. We'll be talking. Maybe we can talk to him about this book and what he has received, any briefings and the like.